Hello, my name's Sabrina. Today I'm going to go over exam 2, and for the first question I'm going to be going over what a sponge is. I'm going to go over the anatomy of it, its cellular scale, its cellular function, its lifespan, and then on question 2 I'm going to talk about molecules of water. I'm going to talk about water potential. I'm going to go over evaporation, transpiration, evapotranspiration, and water potentials and how that process of evaporation, transpiration, and evapotranspiration all can help draw water up from the ground and roots to help the ecosystems and trees grow, plants. And I'm going to try to not do a lot of heavy reading. I'm going to try to pull out of my mind too from the material that I know. It's just hard to think about it when I'm so nervous and then I say nothing. So bear with me. Exam 2, question 1. And we're going over the sponges. Sponges are marine vertebrates, meaning that they can live in the water. They are among some of the most simplest and some of the most revolutionary creatures known. They've been around for a really long time, like millions of years. Their functions are very complex and they are very vital contributors to the ecosystem. They do a lot of filtering and balancing of the ecosystem to make it healthy to live in. They do not contain a brain or any organs like other animals do, but they do have a way to survive. So the sponges lack the body tissues, muscles, and nervous systems, so their bodies depend on specialized cells that will help them stay in place while they filter and circulate the water. The process is called mesophyll. Although sponges lack the nerves and muscles, their cells still communicate and function through molecular mechanisms such as endocytosis. So our brains tells our bodies what to do. It sends us a signal, but they don't have that, but they're still able to communicate and function like they're supposed to through endocytosis. So, and there's also signal transduction and gene regulation. So endocytosis is when the food particles are engulfed into the cell's membrane by a receptor-mediated endocyte, and signal transduction is when cells respond to chemical signals in the water because they lack the synapses, what I was talking about with the brain. They use basic signaling proteins. And then there's gene regulation, and that's when the molecular pathways allow reprogramming during the regeneration process. So this is like the healing time, and it helps it heal and regenerate. So it's good for growth and repair. Water goes through the sponges through flagellated cells known as, I can't say the sinusoids. These cells create a current that channels the water into the other canals and chambers, and it captures the microscopic particles and oxygen along the way. I think of a water sponge. Water exits through the complete out. Oh, sorry, I am reading, but sorry. Water exits through the specialized cells called conocytes, porocytes, and ambiocytes. The conocytes line in the sponge internal chambers and creates water flow while trapping food particles. Porocytes form from the pores that lead water into the sponge's body, and they are considered to be the gatekeepers of water entry. They just absorb and hold on to that water. Amniocytes roam through the mesophyll, and it distributes the nutrients that aid in reproduction, and it secretes materials for structural support. This is the decentralized system of the sponge's cellular function, and it allows it to adapt, regenerate, and survive in various conditions, even if it does not have a brain to tell it what to do. Sponges reproduce in a way that mirror their environments so that they blend in. That's where adaptability comes in. Asexual production that usually happens through budding or fragmentation helps pieces of the sponge break off and develop into new individual sponges. Sexual reproduction releases sperm into the water, and they signal other nearby sponges to absorb and fertilize internal eggs. The results are that the larvae of the motile and they can swim freely before they can settle into the adult life. So they reproduce very well really just dependent on the environment, but they're adaptable, so it's always going to happen. The sponges play an important role in the ecosystem. They filter and purify thousands of liters of water every day that ensures purifying ecosystems and maintaining balance in coral reefs and other marine habitats. Sponges digest organic material and release nutrients back into the water, and it helps nourish nearby algae and plankton. By processing detritus, they help recycle nitrogen and carbon that is vital for the ecosystem. That's the balance I was speaking of before. Sponges also help create homes and hiding spaces for small fish and microorganisms. Some sponges produce bioactive compounds that help keep the predators away, and it's even helpful for human pharmaceuticals because they can produce a bioactive compound, and this bioactive compound draws in the pharmaceutical research for potential antibiotics and anti-cancer agents, so potentially leading to a cure later. Sponges have been around throughout evolution, and they will remain an important part of our ecosystem for many, many more years to come. So, exam 2, question 2. This is where we're going to talk about water molecules, but I'm going to start off about ground fresh water. So deep below the ground is where the water fills the small spaces between the soil, minerals, and rocks. It's fresh and clean with little salt or pollution. And because of this, the water has high water potential, which indicates it's ready to move to place where water is needed more. So really, if one place in water has too much water and another place does not, that excess water will go to where it's needed. So water always moves from where there's more of it to where there is less. That's the basic idea behind the water potential. Water moves toward pieces with lower potential, such as the tree roots. Like a nearby maple tree uses its roots to soak up the water. Water goes into the tree's roots by osmosis. And I want to add, because I did not write that in, that the runoff is also a part of this. So water goes into the tree roots by osmosis, which is just the movement of water into the cells that have more salt or sugar on the inside. The root cells have lower water potential, so the water moves in naturally. Specific places in the water cell walls that are called aquasporins help lead water into them easily. It just draws it in. Once inside the roots, water starts its trip upward through the tree. Inside the tree, water moves through the tubes called, I can't say that word, xylem. These tubes don't pump water like a heart. Instead, they rely on the pulling force from the leaves. This process is called evaporation. Evaporation happens when water turns into vapor and leaves the tree through little holes called through the stomata, and it creates a tug on the tree that forcefully pulls the water upward from the roots. The water sticks to itself, which is also known as cohesion, and it sticks to the walls of the tube, that is also known as adhesion. And it keeps the water column strong. The process is called cohesion tension theory. It's how the water climbs up trees without using any kind of energy, and when the water reaches the leaves, it either gets used for photosynthesis, which makes the food, or it just leaves the tree as vapors. And this is called transpiration, and it mostly happens when the sun is out and the tree is warm. The tiny stomata opens and closes to control how much water escapes. When water evaporates, it makes the pressure inside the leaf lower, so more water gets pulled from below. And in its molecules, it's working together to keep the flow going. Once the water becomes vapor and floats into the air, it becomes a part of something bigger. That is known as evapotranspiration, which means evaporation and transpiration. And together, both of those form clouds and rain. And everything about this process, it is driven by the water potential. Water moves from where it's more available to where it is less available. This happens because of natural differences in pressure and concentration, not because the tree pushes or pumps water. The air has the lowest water potential, which creates a more strong pull to keep the water moving upward. Sunlight and the dryness make the process stronger. Water movement helps the trees by staying hydrated, it gets nutrients, it makes food through photosynthesis, it stays cool, and for the earth, the evapotranspiration helps control the temperatures, move waters, and build weather systems because it produces the clouds and rain. So the whole process is very vital. And here I've included a picture, and I'm very disappointed that we can't see. Let's see if I could zoom it in any. I cannot. I'm sorry. So I guess I can describe it. So on the bottom, we've got the ground, the soil, and inside the soil, there is a plant. I wanted to draw a tree, but I can't draw a tree, so that's what I drew. And on top of it's the runoff water that goes through and soaks into the ground. And up here is where we have the evapotranspiration because it's forming the clouds, it's forming the rain, which causes condensation. And then it's going into the ground absorbing, but then that pull from the evaporation is coming up and pulling it up to this plant through transpiration. I'm so sorry. I do know what I'm talking about. It's just hard for me to put it when I'm talking like this. But I hope that you guys have enjoyed my little lecture. I wish I was better at it, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I've enjoyed it.